All right, everybody, I'm Logan Alec, I'm a CPA, and in this video, I'm going to be reviewing the Credit Karma Tax tax software for use in preparing 2020 tax returns due in 2021. In my reviews of the TurboTax tax software and the H&R Block online tax software, I received comments from some of my viewers letting me know that they're interested in using the Credit Karma tax software because they've heard it's 100% free for everybody. So I thought it would be worth my while to look into Credit Karma Tax. I've never used Credit Karma Tax before. This will be my first time in their software right now as I record this video. Okay, so first things first, let's go to the Credit Karma Tax website here. It looks like right now I'm recording this, it's early January right now. It says estimate your 2020 refund. That's a weird way to put it. Maybe their e-filing isn't set up yet, but I'm sure we can still walk through the tax return process here. Credit Karma Tax, is it really free? So they're saying it's always 100% free. Zero to file both state and federal returns. Even if you're taking deductions or credits, it won't cost you a penny ever, right? You know, in H&R Block in TurboTax, if you itemize your deductions, right? You file Schedule A, you itemize your deductions, right? Home mortgage interest, charitable contributions, state and local taxes, including property taxes, that's capped at 10K now. But if you itemize those deductions rather than taking the standard deduction, you have to pay to a paid version of TurboTax and H&R Block. And, if you sell stocks, right, you have to upgrade to a higher version. If you have a small business, then you have to upgrade to a higher version. So that's why Credit Karma Tax is pointing out that here to kind of ostensibly separate themselves from that competition. All right, back over to the website here. Audit defense, free of charge. That's interesting. I'd like to know the terms on that. But in other tax softwares, you often have to pay for audit defense. Max refund guarantee. Okay, that's pretty typical. No matter what tax software you use, assuming it's coded properly, right, which H&R Block and TurboTax and Credit Karma Tax and all the big ones are, you're going to get the same result, right, if you give it the same information. All right, it's not like, oh, this one's going to get me a bigger refund than that one. There's some gray area in tax, but for the majority of people watching this, you have one correct tax refund amount that you're going to get, right? And it shouldn't really make a difference what tax software you use. Now, maybe some tax softwares are more intuitive, and they help you give it the right answer better than others, where maybe it asks some weird questions and you're not giving it the right answer, so it comes out with the wrong answer. But needless to say, in these tax softwares, when they talk about a max refund guarantee, it's kind of neither here nor there. Accurate calculations, easy to switch. Okay, so you can import last year's tax return from H&R Block, TurboTax, or Tax Act. Okay, they don't have Tax Slayer, but they do have Tax Act, and the two big ones, of course, H&R Block Online and TurboTax. Is it really free? Yep. It doesn't look like there's any disclaimers there. It says it's always 100% free. Always. Okay. Accurate security practices is pretty typical across all tax softwares. Is it better than TurboTax? Okay, so it's not saying that we're better, but it's saying it's free as opposed to TurboTax. You have to pay for it. I like this. When you file a Credit Karma Tax, you'll never face unexpected charges or be asked to upgrade to a paid version. If you've seen my reviews of TurboTax, you know that one kind of beef that I have with TurboTax is it's always trying to upsell you, right? Even if you have the simplest tax return in the world and you qualify for the TurboTax free edition, you'll still get a couple upsells as you walk through the process to upgrade for like audit protection or, all this stuff. Or sometimes they even, if you watch my TurboTax review from last year, they're trying to upsell someone to a paid edition of TurboTax, even though it didn't really make sense. Anyway, that's what Credit Karma is getting at here. Am I eligible to file taxes with Credit Karma Tax? They said most people yes. Tax forms. Okay, so they support the typical tax forms. Okay, let's look at the forms and situations that Credit Karma Tax supports. Okay, state tax situations we support. Now this is interesting. It says if you need to file a state return for one of the 40 states we support, or the District of Columbia. This is interesting because there are 7 states that don't have an income tax, but so it seems to me there are some states that have an income tax that Credit Karma Tax doesn't support. I kind of want to see this list here. States available for filing Credit Karma Tax. It's kind of lame. There's no list there. Maybe when e-file opens, it'll have a list here, but that's a little misleading, right? So see the full list here, and there's no list here. So minor strike. Okay, so they support all these forms. Looking at this list here, yeah, this covers the majority of people's situations, right? You got Schedule A, B, C, D, E, F. Yep. Okay. How about the? Yep. Okay. Yeah. So looking at this list, it's pretty. It's not exhaustive. It's not every tax form, but for the vast majority of people, it's got you covered. So let's go back. All right. So I'm going to click estimate your refund. Maybe later on in the tax season, it'll actually say start your tax return. All right. 100% free tax filing. Get started in minutes. Okay. Tell us who you are. This is typical. Actually, I'm not going to use my real name. So to do these tax return reviews, I actually invented this individual called Jimmy Dean. He's the taxpayer we're going to file a tax return for. So Jimmy Dean, he lives at 501 Wilcox Avenue, Los Angeles, 90004. California. Let's say he was born January 1st. Now, let's say he was born July 4th, 1976. Bicentennial boy. Social. I gave him... Oh, it just wants the last four. So I gave him a fake social here. Last four digits are 32333. How'd you hear about Credit Karma? I'm going to say YouTube. I've heard about Credit Karma, the non-tax Credit Karma stuff. I don't know when I heard of it, but I heard about Credit Karma tax mostly through some of my YouTube commenters. So I'll say YouTube. I understand and agree. Okay. Please provide your full social. Okay. I thought I couldn't, but okay. This is the fake social I gave him. All right, let's go. Validation failed. Shoot. Okay. All right, so the issue here is I think it realizes I put in a fake social security number. The TurboTax and H&R Block didn't really care about that. But I think because Credit Karma, they're into credit scores, and obviously credit scores are associated with your social security number, they're picky about that. So I think I'm going to have to use my real social. All right, so I just signed up for Credit Karma Tax. I didn't actually record that because A, it's self-explanatory, and B, I had to input my social security number and email address and all this stuff. But, signing up is pretty straightforward. Yes, you will have to provide your social security number. That's completely normal and expected. If you're using a tax preparation software, you will have to give them your social because your social security number goes on your tax return. Okay. All right. So now I'm in Credit Karma Tax. Now let's begin the walkthrough/review. Okay. So this first step here tells about yourself. Are you filing joint with a spouse? I'm going to say no, just for purposes of this example. Do you have any dependents? I'm going to say yes for purposes of this example. Did any of this apply to you in 2020? I'm going to say no, because for most people, this doesn't apply. All right, what did you do in 2020? You can choose more than one. So I'm going to say that I worked for someone else. I did, in fact, create sample tax forms. So I'll, this fake taxpayer that I'm doing a tax return for, they work for this company called Big Company. So that's how that's going to go. Investment income. Yeah, let's say I got some interest income, and yeah, let's say I got some investment income too. So I prepared a fake 1099 interest for interest income. I also prepared this is actually a real investment account statement for this investment account that I forgot I had. You can see I got $2.57 at dividend income. So yeah, and I liquidated the account because I didn't want to deal with it anymore. There's a little bit of stock transactions too. So I wanted to see how how Credit Karma Tax handles stock transactions. I couldn't do that for TurboTax and HR Block. I could, but I just want to walk through the free edition with those, right? And the free edition with those you can't do stock transactions, right? You have to upgrade to a paid edition. But Credit Karma Tax, it looks like you can handle that. So I want to see if it can handle that and handle it well. Not too complicated. Shouldn't be hard. Other income, I'm going to say no. All right, what did you pay for in 2020? I'm going to say that, sure, let's say I owned a home. Let's say I donated a charity. Yeah, let's say I had dependent care expenses for my kid. Okay, yeah, let's say I contributed to an HSA for my W-2. Other items, no. All right, personalizing your taxes. Okay, IRS isn't accepting e-files just yet, but you can still prepare your tax with us now. Okay, fair enough. It is early January, it's still early. Okay, so the interface here is interesting. TurboTax probably did this the best, right? And H&R Block did it this way too. But TurboTax and H&R Block, there's none of this. Oh, click on what you want to work on right now, right? Family credit. It would just take you step by step. You answer questions, you input information, right? Then it takes you to the next screen, to the next screen, to the next screen. So, did you have this circumstance, right? Okay, then it'll give you this screen. It was a little more hand-holding. Credit Karma Tax, while I'm sure it gives you the right answer for everything, it seems like it's less hand-holding, less like, okay, we're going to do this screen, then that screen, and more like, okay, here's all the stuff about you tax-wise, have at it, right? Which is fine. You just might have to have a little bit more preliminary knowledge. But let's start here with basic info, your household information. Sharing your tax info with Cash App enhances your experience. If you have Cash App, go ahead, knock yourself out. If you don't have Cash App, use a link in my description below. You get a bonus. Little quick plug there. But I'm not going to do that because I'm assuming a lot of folks don't have Cash App. Okay. So this is all my basic information. It's already populated here. You would obviously fill this out. Social security number. Now it asks for filing status. Now this is another area where it's like what if you don't know, right? Like, what if you don't know what head of household means versus single, right? So that's one thing that I think TurboTax and HR Block a little bit better, right? It would ask you questions, and then it would say, okay, this is your filing status. Credit Karma Tax, it's expecting you to know your filing status. It does have this thing here, right? But it's just explaining to you the rules. It's not actually holding your hand, asking you questions, and then telling you, oh, your filing status is single. Oh, your filing status is head of household, right? It's not doing that. It is expecting some preliminary knowledge on behalf of the taxpayer. Okay, dependents, yes. Occupation, let's say accountant. Okay, so these are, like these two here will increase your standard deduction. Full-time student, claim as a dependent by somebody else. This will obviously affect your ability to claim yourself as a dependent. You can if you claim by somebody else if you're deceased. So I'm going to assume these don't apply. I assume these don't apply to the majority of people watching this. Okay, so the dependents. So I'm going to say that I have a son who lives with me. And we're going to say that he was born on January 1st, 2010. All right, son. How long did they live through in 2020? 12 months. 12 months. And this is an important box to check. I provide at least half of their support in 2020. Because if they provided more than, if someone provides more than half of their own support, well, you can't claim them. Okay, so anything that applies to my dependent, no, he's not married. He is a U.S. citizen, so he's not a U.S. citizen. He's not permanently disabled, not a full-time student. By the way, when the tax code talks about full-time student, generally referring to a college student. Okay, your dependent's qualified. Great. Okay, so basic household info. There's me. There's my dependent. Okay, so interesting. Okay, now I guess the option is to go back to tax home. It doesn't feel as sequential as TurboTax and HR Block. Okay, now we just got to go down the list here, I guess. W-2. Okay, this is where I pull the information from the W-2 I made up. Employer ID number, that's right here. All right, this form belongs to me. Employer's name and address. I'm pulling that from right here. All right, so now I'm just going to fill out the boxes here as they appear on the W-2 itself, right? So box 1 for wages is 83,867.54. Federal income tax withheld, 7,205.80. Social Security wages, 83,998.79. And the reason that these are different is because on this W-2 I made up, there is a $131.25 contribution to a 401k, right? And so that reduces the taxable wage on the tax return, but it does not reduce the Social Security or Medicare wage basis, right? So that's why these two are $131.25 higher than the taxable wages reported on the 1040. Anyway, Social Security tax withheld, $5,207.92. Medicare wages and tips, $83,998.79. Medicare tax withheld, $1,217.98. Social Security tips didn't have any, no allocated tips. Verification code, I don't think that's on here. Dependent care benefits, no. Non-qualified plans, nope. All right, here we go on box 12. So, this is another thing that's very simple. I'm just going to input these codes and amounts as they appear in the W-2. So first one is box C, $417.49. Going to add another row. Next one is D for 131.25. Next one is double D for 24,199.76. 24,199.76. And next one is W for 1,200. These are HSA contributions. So even though these are only employer contributions on the W-2, I believe both TurboTax and H&R Block would require you to upgrade in order to report HSA contributions or distributions, for that matter, on your tax return, even if it's just employer-made contributions, right? Simple form, but they still charge for it. Credit Karma Tax, it's looking like you can include this, and they're not going to charge you for it. So, all right, now we're going to go down here, boxes 13 and 14. Right, retirement plan, that is obviously checked because there's a 401k contribution. Other, okay, so you may have this on this one. There is a box in other because they're in California, you have to pay state disability insurance fund. Okay, it rounds up for you. Huh, that's interesting. I guess these rounded up too. Okay. State. All right, here's state information down here, box 15, 16, 17. It's California. Employer state ID, it's right here. State wages, tips, etc. Typically the same as the amount in box 1, unless you work for the same employer in different states. State income tax, right here, 4848.62. All right, so no local tax here. All right, save this W-2. Okay, so that looks good. All right, now obviously if you have another W-2, you're going to click Add Another W-2. If this is your only W-2, you're going to hit Back to Tax Home. All right, now savings and interest. Okay, so I did say I had an interest income. You might have a 1099 interest. That's exactly what I have. I'm going to click Start. Add new interest form. Okay, so payer's name right here. Big Bank. Obviously, this is a fictitious name. Okay, payer federal ID number. Put it right here. And just to be absolutely clear here, you will not be inputting the information on here on your actual tax return. You will use the forms that you actually received from your bank or your employer or whatever the case may be. Account number, you don't really need to include that. You can if you want. All right. So interest belongs to Logan, right? If you're married, sometime, obviously it belongs to me because I'm the only taxpayer on this return. But if you're married, and if it's only to, the first spouse, you would just put the first spouse. If it's in a joint account, it'd be joint. You get the picture. All right. Box one, $100. And that's it. Okay, foreign tax paid, box 6, box 7, none of that. Box 8, 9, 14, 8, 9, 14. Okay, this is kind of a little. Oh gosh. Okay, no, none of this applies. Snow. Okay, it's all right. This is kind of annoying me now, because like the information it's going over right now applies in like maybe like 1% of 1099 interests that people have. Right. I would kind of prefer that it just had the input all on one page. Maybe they're kind of doing it to make sure people don't miss anything, but still, it's kind of annoying to have to click through all these pages that only apply in a very, small circumstances, like very, very few circumstances. Like vast majority of people, the only amount they'll have is an amount here. If it's tax exempt interest, like municipal bond or something, they'll have something here. But that's, and maybe something here too, right? But like for income tax withheld, like the state section, like you don't see that too often, but. All right, so that's nothing. Okay, so now if that's the only 1099 interest you received, you would obviously hit continue, I suppose. If you have another 1099 interest, you would hit add new interest form. All right, continue. Okay, back to tax home. Interesting, this feels a little redundant. All right, investments. Let's do investments now. Okay, dividend income. Right, so I prepared a fake little... actually, this isn't fake. This is real. This is from an actual account of mine. This is a 2019 form, right? Because I haven't received 2020 forms yet, but these forms should look very, the same as 2020. Okay, so obviously you're not going to use a 2019 form. You're going to use a 2020 form, but just for the sake of this example here, I pulled a form from last year. Okay. All right, so now we're going to input see how it says 1099 div here, right? 1099 div, 1099 div, right? So hit start. All right, add new dividend income, payer name. So this will just be the name of the brokerage. And you can get that right up here, Apex Clearing. Federal ID number, that will be, where? Here, right here. So 132967453. Account number, again, you can input that if you want or just leave it blank. Okay, kind of same thing with as with the interest. All right, total ordinary income dividends, box 1A. That's right here, see box 1A, total ordinary dividends, $2.57. All right, total qualified dividends, $1.89. Boom. All right, so capital gain. So I have nothing in box 2 on this 10.9 dividend, so I have nothing there. I have nothing in box 3 here, nothing in box 3. I mean, you very well may. I just don't. Nothing in box 4. Okay, 199A dividends, box 5, 11 cents. It will probably round this down to 0. Investment expenses, box 6. No, nothing. Foreign tax paid, box 7. 7 cents. Again, it will likely round that down to nothing. Foreign country, it says various. So select various, or you can do, where's other country? This is a little annoying. This is a little annoying. Oftentimes, in tax software, when you report your foreign dividends, oftentimes tax softwares will have an input for other country. I don't know if TurboTax or H&R Block did, because I actually didn't input the 10.9 dividend because I was wanting to walk them through the free versions, but to input dividend, or actually no, dividends are okay. To input stocks like capital gains into TurboTax and H&R Block, you had to upgrade, right? So I didn't do dividends either. Okay, well, in this case, you have to actually figure out where the which country it's from. Oh, actually, it does have other country. Why didn't I see that? Oh, there it is. It's at the bottom. Okay. Now, I'm not saying you should do this because you should actually put the actual country. But sometimes what I do, right, if it's a ton of countries, I just put other country. Okay. But don't tell anybody that. Okay. All right. Okay. That's not tax fraud, by the way, because vast majority of cases, it'll end up being the same in terms of your tax bill, your foreign tax credit. Okay, so box 9, 10, 11, 12. The only thing we have here is something in box 11, exempt interest dividends, 36 cents. Again, it's probably going to round that down to 0. Continue. Okay, state withholdings. Nope, none of that. You can see on the... So here it's asking for state withholdings, boxes 12 through 14. You can see that there's not even those boxes on the 1099 div that I received. So this is all blank. All right, obviously, if you have another 1099 dividend form from another brokerage account, you would hit add new dividend income. Otherwise, you're going to hit continue. And now I have to report my stock sales. See, stocks, mutual fund, and bond sales, 1099B. I'll take you over back to the 1099 here. You can see form 1099B. And then the brokerage will typically, break down for you the tax inputs you need to make in your tax software. So let's do that now. All right, start. How many cells we got here? That's too many than I want to input. All right, so we're just going to do summarized entry. And what I like to do is how I like to describe it is, group it by short term and long term, or group it by the box, right? In this case, it's only box A or box D. So what I like to do is I like to say, I think this is my wealth front. Wealth front box A, right? I'm going to do total proceeds 128. What do I do? I'm not showing you where I'm getting the numbers. Right. So here is box A, right? 128.43 is the proceeds. 126.87 is the cost basis, right? I'm putting box A. Wealthfront is the name of the brokerage, by the way. Sorry, it's actually Wealthsimple. I got that wrong. So I'm going to say this is Wealthsimple, right? Wealthsimple, box A. 128.43 proceeds. 126.87 cost basis. All right. 128.43, 126.87. Cell category, box A, okay? Because it says right here, box A. Easy. Continue. All right, so I have to add another sale here, you'll notice, because on the 1099, I also have some box D amounts for long term. So I'm going to add more sales here, summarized entry, description. I'm going to call this Wealthfront. Sorry, Wealthsimple, box D, okay? Because it says box D. Proceeds 163.89, cost basis 154.20. Okay. Proceeds 163.89, cost basis 154.20. Select category, box D. Right. Continue. Okay. So, in this sample example tax return here, these are the only two stock inputs that have to be made. If you have more, you'll obviously hit add more sales. Otherwise, you'll just hit continue down there. All right, so let's review this. The dividends, the stock sales. Yeah. So those all look correct. You obviously want to check it. If you have a capital loss carryover, meaning that you took stock losses in a previous year, and they wiped out your capital gains for that year, and you credited $3,000 against your ordinary income because that's the statutory limit, but then you still had some capital loss left over, then you can apply that to this year to knock out your gains this year and also apply up to $3,000 to your ordinary income. So if you have capital loss carryover, you would input that there. If you're not sure whether you have a capital loss or not, you can just look on your Schedule D from last year, right? This is 2020. Look on your 2019, obviously. And if line 16 is a loss, okay, and it is $3,000 or less, you very likely don't have a capital loss carry forward, okay? Because it would all be applied against your ordinary income last year, the excess of your capital loss against your capital gain. But if line 16 is greater than a $3,000 loss, meaning it's a greater loss than $3,000 loss, for example, like $4,000 loss, then your capital loss carry forward is whatever's on line 16, however greater that loss is than a $3,000 loss, right? So if your loss here was negative 4,000, then you would put negative 3,000 here because that's the maximum you can take against your ordinary income, and the difference between 16 and 21 would be your capital loss carry forward, right? So in that case, negative $1,000. But I'm going to assume that this individual I'm doing this tax return for doesn't have that. OID, if you would get a form that says 1099 OID, it's another simple form that you just input into the tax software. If you invest in a lending club or peer-to-peer lending, you might have something like that. 1286 contracts and straddles, that's just another input you can make. There's a statutory split between long and short term. All right, so now I think we're done with investments. So we're going to go back to tax home. All right, so we did wages, we did savings and interest, we did investments. This is interesting. Home, rental property, and royalties count too. So they're kind of combining your personal residence with your rental properties, which is interesting because those are obviously treated very differently for tax purposes. So, but we're assuming no rental properties here. Okay, well, we didn't sell the home. Maybe we paid mortgage, but we didn't sell the home. And we're assuming no rental properties. Okay, back to tax home, nothing to do here. Obviously, if you sold your home or if you have rental property, it's complete information there, but I'm assuming that's not the case here. All right, HSA, MSA. This is interesting because on the W-2, I indicated that there were employer HSA contributions, but it's not there. Okay, so I would think it would have picked up on that, but it didn't. So I think we have to do this manually. Who has an HSA? Logan. Continue. Oh, okay. Well, it picked it up there. So I figured that out. Did Logan's employer tell Logan about any other contributions? What did they do? Whisper in your ear? I'm going to say no. Did Logan receive an IRA distribution that was used to found? No, that's pretty uncommon. Did Logan contribute anything to an HSA outside of payroll contribution? So if you have an HSA and your employer contributes an amount, right? Report on your W-2, just like in this example. But then you also contribute amounts to your HSA beyond what your employer put in. You would select yes right here, right? But I'm assuming that's not the case on this tax return. Did I overfund the HSA? No. Value of Logan's HSAs on December 30th, 2020. I'm going to say the value is... You're actually going to look on your HSA account and figure that out, right? But, okay. Were you covered by an HDHP? You got to say yes, right? Because that's the only way you'd be eligible for an HSA. I'm going to say self only. And I'll say family, right? Because I said I had dependent here. Right. Okay. All right, so that's the HSA stuff. Back to tax home. We should be almost done here. Right, family credits. This is the child tax credit, which is $2,000, right? Because I said I had a child born in 2010 whom I support. But kind of the interesting thing here is I also said that I pay for dependent care, right? That's like daycare. How old's the kid though? Maybe they're still daycare at that age. I don't know. Someone might look at this and say, "Oh, well, I already got the tax credit for this, right?" But the the credit to pay for daycare is on top of the credit for the child tax credit, right? So I wish I had made that a little bit more clear. So dependent care credit. Add a new care provider. So we're going to say the care provider is, I don't know, Big Daycare, 100 Big Daycare Lane, California, 90017. You're going to put the EIN of the daycare provider. You can just call them up and ask for it. I'm sure they get that question all the time. I'm going to say I paid $2,000. I don't know, that's confusing. I'm going to say I paid $3,000 to this provider for the year. Please enter the amount of qualifying expenses paid for each dependent, right? Okay, so I'm going to say I paid all for him, right, because he's my only dependent. Okay. All right, so I think that's it for that. Obviously, if you paid a second daycare provider or third or fourth, whatever, you'd hit add new care provider. I'm assuming that's not the case here, so I'm going to hit continue. Special situations. You need to exclude any of your qualifying dependents from the dependent care credit. No. Do you have dependent care benefit items to enter? No. Right. Okay. So we got a dependent care credit for $600. Yay. Right. See, so let me go back here. Right. Now this is $2,600. If I would to have just seen that initially, it said $2,000. I'm gonna assume, okay, I'm good with the dependent care credit, right? I'm good with all this, everything pertaining to my child. When in reality, if that's what you were thinking, you would miss out on the $600 credit. I wish, Credit Karma Tax just made that more apparent. In my opinion, going through this so far, TurboTax is the only one that's been really good about making sure that you kind of answer all the questions that could be applicable to your situation, right? H&R Block and TurboTax, H&R Block and Credit Karma Tax, it kind of leaves it up to you to figure things out sometimes. And here's another example of that. All right, home ownership expenses. Now this is where you'll input the, I imagine, the home mortgage interest. Yep, here we go. So you will typically get a Form 1098 at the in January from your mortgage company, and it'll have all the information here, the interest you paid. I didn't make a fake one of these, so I'm just gonna input random information. Mortgage insurance premiums, I'm gonna assume none of that. This is interesting. Why does it start with that? Because that's box 5. Mortgage insurance premiums. Why does it start that? I would have thought it would start with just home mortgage interest. Anyway, I don't know. Okay, you'll pull the information from your 1098 home mortgage interest. We're saying let's say it's I don't know, $10,000 for the year. You may need to limit blah 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 points. We're gonna say no points. We're going to say we didn't pay any mortgage interest off the 1098. All right, continue. All right, real estate taxes. This is often will be reported on the 1098, right? If it's paid out of your impound account through your mortgage company, they'll often have it actually. Either as a statement down here, or some other section here. But if you pay it directly, right, your mortgage company doesn't pay it for you, right? Well, it's obviously your money, but they write the check. Then you would have to look at the checks you wrote, right? And sometimes it's split, right? Sometimes, maybe I've seen it happen where someone bought a house and, they paid mortgage interest they paid real property taxes through the mortgage company, but then they got a supplemental tax bill, right? And they just wrote a check for that themselves, right? So you gotta make sure, if you're in doubt, check the county assessor website, check your most recent property tax bill. Real estate taxes paid, I'm gonna say that is, I don't know, $2,000. Numbers are really low, by the way, I know. Okay, so it's talking about residential energy credits, first time home buyer credit repayment, mortgage interest credit, District of Columbia, first time home buyer credit. I'm assuming none of these apply. You will know, right? You would have gotten a document for each one of these telling you about this benefit if it applied to you. But I'm assuming none of these apply here. All right, back to tax home. All right, we're moving right along here. Charity, okay. So I'm going to say that this individual gave $1,000 to charity during the year. Okay, this is a little misleading. Other than cash, check, or credit card, it says 500 or less. I mean, you can take deductions of certainly of more than $500. You just have to file separate forms with it. So, I mean, if I just looked at this, I might assume that, oh, I can only deduct things for $500 or less, which is not the case. Oh, here we go. Gifts over $500, right? So this is where you would say, okay, if you gave something worth $1,000, you'd input it here. I'm assuming no, though, just to keep this moving along. All right, so we input the cash gifts. Okay, this is interesting. So, okay, so it's at the top here. It kind of tracks your tax due and refund amounts. View my tax forms. Huh. Actually, ooh, I kind of like this, actually. Like, it actually shows you the populated tax form as you go. Oh, I like that. That was not apparent to me that could be done in TurboTax and H&R Block. This is really good, actually. So you can like just review it here, right? Like, it's awesome. That's really good, actually. Ooh, okay. I like Credit Karma Tax. Like, I mean, this alone, I like this. There were some things about Credit Karma Tax where it's like, but I mean, this is actually really cool. You can like in the middle of as you're preparing your return, you can click, as I clicked, view my tax forms, right? And you can view the PDF right there as you're preparing your tax return. So that's pretty sweet. All right. So what would happen next is you go back to the home screen here. You reviewed your federal return, right? The PDF. And then you move down to your state return here. Okay, now here it's saying that you can't work in California yet. That's interesting to me because in TurboTax, I was still able to work on the California return. I couldn't file it yet. I did the TurboTax review in December, right? California wasn't open for e-filing, but I could still prepare it in TurboTax, at least as best as TurboTax knew at the time, given that some of the California forms weren't finalized yet. Credit Karma Tax, it doesn't look like that's the case. It won't even let me work in California at all. That's okay for purposes of this review because states are obviously state by state. Not a whole lot of value in walking through the California return for those of you who don't live here. All right, so at this point, let's say you've reviewed your federal return, everything looks good, and let's say you've done your state return, you reviewed it, everything looks good. Then you just go down here and review and file. Okay, look at this. Okay, so do you remember at the beginning when I was like, now maybe some tax softwares are more intuitive, and they help you give it the right answer better than others, where maybe it asks some weird questions and you're not giving it the right answer, so it comes out with the wrong answer. But well, here's one thing it caught. Filing as head of household. I thought we did file head of household. Oh, yep. This, I think I commented about this. Like, I was like, oh, okay, it's expecting you to know your filing status, right? Why doesn't it tell you? Why doesn't it just ask you questions and then let it tell you what it thinks your filing status is, rather than you having to know, right, what single versus head of household is, right? But on the back end here, right before you file a return, it'll catch that. I think it would be a better user experience if it actually, caught that beforehand in the process, right? In the tax return preparation process. But I am glad it caught it. Okay. But now I suppose what you have to do is you just go here and change the head of household. Now, obviously you can read the rules here, right? But still, it's still just letting, basically your only option is to basically figure out for yourself and select the right option. All right, so now I guess we have to walk through all this stuff again. Okay, I don't really want to do all this. Okay, so that's not the best user experience here. Recovery rebate. Here's another thing. Okay, the stimulus. TurboTax did this the best, right? TurboTax asked you as you were filing the tax return preparation process, did you get a stimulus check? right? H&R Block, it calculated the recovery rebate credit for you, but it was up to you to figure out, oh, I need to fix that if I got a stimulus check, right? Credit Karma Tax, it looks like it caught it here. Okay, what I'm curious about here, I'm really curious if they already have second stimulus check information in there, the 600, right? So how can we test this? Okay, I'm gonna say right here that I got, 2,900, right? That's a total stimulus, first and second, this individual will be eligible for, right? $1,200 first stimulus check plus $500 for dependent. The first time around, that's $1,700 plus $600 second stimulus for myself, $600 for the dependent, to $2,900, right? So if I put $2,900, okay, it says you're good to go. All right, so that tells me it is kind of taking into account the second stimulus. Although even if you put like $10,000 here, you wouldn't be asked to pay it back, right? You're good to go. The concern rather is, what if you didn't get as high a stimulus as you should have? Like, what if I only got $1,800, right? Let's say that Treasury only paid me the $1,200 for me for first stimulus and the $600 for me for stimulus, but somehow they left out my child, the dependent, right? That's very common. I've seen that in a lot of instances. So what if I just put $1,800 here? Will H&R Block catch, or Credit Karma Tax catch that and say, hey, you can claim this stimulus payment credit? No, it's not. What if I put 2,400? Ooh, this is not good. What if I just put 1,200? No, you're not good to go. We're not good to go here, Credit Karma Tax. Because obviously, let's say it's just assuming the first stimulus right now. Let's say it hasn't updated for second stimulus. Still, just based on the first stimulus alone, if I only got a $1,200 stimulus check, I should be getting a $600 stimulus recovery rebate credit, right, for the dependent. Or sorry, $500 recovery rebate credit for the dependent, right? So, Credit Karma Tax. This is a bad thing about Credit Karma Tax. They don't seem to have all the stimulus information in there yet. What if I put 0? You're good to go? No, we're not good to go. I should get a recovery rebate credit, right? Unless they're calculating it. Hold on. Okay. No, they're not. They're not calculating the recovery rebate credit here. Okay, so it is calculating it. And it's taking into account the second stimulus check. Because I said, I only got 1,200, right? That's what I said. Right? No, this is only the first stimulus. It's only taking into account the first stimulus. Because what did I put? I put 0, right? Like, let's go to credits. Right, I said I didn't get a stimulus payment. It's only calculating $1,700 for the credit for the first stimulus. Not 2,900, which would be for the second stimulus as well. Okay, so I guess we're in a limbo period right now, right? Because it's tax season, but a lot of people are going to be receiving their second stimulus check. Some people have already received it, but some people are still going to receive it in the near future. But if they file their tax return before that, they might get screwed up with the recovery rebate credit calculation. I should make a separate video on this. Okay. Good thing I'm walking through this, right? So as of right now, I'm recording this on January 4th, by the way. As of right now, Credit Karma Tax is only taking into account the first stimulus payment. Okay. And I assume that's probably the case for other tax softwares as well. So yeah, I would say don't file your tax return until you get your second stimulus payment, right? All right. Okay, now I think we're all good in Credit Karma Tax. Back to Tax Home. Oops, I didn't click over here. Okay. All right, review and file. Get ready, file. Okay. Return to dashboard. Okay, so it's not accepting e-files yet, right? But obviously the e-file process is easy. You just click a bunch of buttons. Okay. It's too early in the tax season to do that yet. Well, all right, folks, that was my Credit Karma Tax review. Pros and cons. Well, pro is it's free. I could input stock transactions. I could have inputted a rental property, my business, and it would still be free. TurboTax and H&R Block, they charge you for that. Another pro, it gets the job done. It's intuitive enough, and it was easy to use enough that it gets the job done. It got the job done just as good as TurboTax and H&R Block would have, frankly. And it lets you see a PDF of your tax return as you go. That's great. That's huge. I really, really like that. I really appreciate that. Maybe there's a way to do that. TurboTax and H&R Block, it wasn't apparent to me while I was going through the walkthrough. Cons. I kind of had a similar complaint about H&R Block in a few instances. I kind of wish that it was a little bit more hand-holding in some areas. Like, for example, the filing status. Right off the bat, it asks you what your filing status is. You basically have to know what head of household is in order to pick it, right? It caught it at the end, but I kind of wish that it was a little more hand-holding at the beginning. Another thing that kind of threw me off a little bit at first is the initial screen, right? How the user interface is kind of set up. It's just a bunch of, I'll show you. It's basically a bunch of modules here, and you got to click the button to work on it. TurboTax and H&R Block, it was more sequential, right? They start you here, then they ask you questions, and they move you along yourself. With Credit Karma Tax, you kind of got to click on these modules yourself and kind of know what you're doing, more so than the TurboTax and H&R Block. Another thing that I think is a con is in this section here, family credits. Right here, it had total $2,000, right, for the child tax credit. Many people might just see that and think, oh, okay, I'm covered, right, for all the credits I can get for my kid, without realizing that there's also the dependent care credit, right, if you pay for daycare expenses or whatnot. So I kind of wish they had asked a little more questions, right, so that's not missed. But overall, folks, Credit Karma Tax, it's a fine tax software, right, for free. If you know a little bit about this tax stuff, you don't need quite as much hand-holding, because TurboTax does give you a lot more hand-holding, and H&R Block too, to a lesser extent. It still caught things though. Credit Karma Tax still caught things, right? The filing status at the end, the recovery rebate credit. Don't get me wrong, but if you're pretty comfortable with your tax situation, right, and you want to save some money, I would say, yeah, use Credit Karma Tax if you have a situation that you'd have to pay TurboTax and H&R Block for. Where I'm a little bit hesitant is if you have more complicated kind of scenarios, rental property, you own a business, how helpful and how much would Credit Karma Tax hold your hand through the process? I don't know. Maybe I'll test rental property and doing business, starting a bit, inputting business income and losses in all the tax software. So it might not be as intuitive, but if it's a matter of you would have to upgrade to a paid edition of TurboTax and H&R Block Online just to input your itemized deductions, just use Credit Karma Tax. It's a lot easier. Not easier. It's obviously free, right? You don't have to pay, and it gets the job done. But speaking of like the mortgage interest on the itemized deductions, like it was a little weird, right? It didn't ask you exactly. It didn't have you do like a form 1098 input. It kind of just asked you, okay, what's the mortgage interest and whatever. So that there's some things that aren't quite as intuitive. But again, this goes back to my point. If you know what you're doing, right? If you're not new to taxes, if you kind of know generally what should be on your tax return, it's tough to beat Credit Karma Tax for those price points. However, if you have a super straightforward tax return, right, and price is no issue to you, you might as well use TurboTax, right, or H&R Block if you can use them for free, because it does have a slightly better user experience, right, and maybe a lot better user experience in TurboTax. All right, so I got a little rambly there, but I was impressed by Credit Karma Tax. Not perfect by any means. It's not as luxury. It's not as seamless maybe as TurboTax, but for a price of free, it's better than I expected, quite frankly. Well, that is my review of Credit Karma Tax, folks. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.